Okay, so what we do with test hints, for those of you that were not here at the first test review session, is I have a copy of the test hints in front of me. This is Chapter 2. And I have a copy of the Chapter 2 test in front of me. And I'm going to look at the test and talk you through the test hints that you all have a copy of and give you some pointers. Okay? But,
Did you change the hints from like dishes last year?
no, but you do need to have the hints that say 0809. If you have the ones that say 0506, almost all of it is the same. It just might be a few in a different order, something like that. So this test will have 35 questions. 31 are going to be multiple choice and 4 are short answer. Okay? And we're all focused and paying attention and ready to learn chemistry. Alrighty. So when I asked define matter and give examples, I mentioned this yesterday because we did a practice one. The question specifically says, which of the following is not an example of matter? And I gave you suggestions such as smoke, sugar, fire, water.
Fire.
Why is fire not matter?
Energy.
It's energy. So if we said heat, or if we said light, or if we said radiant energy, microwave, something like that, energy is not matter. It's related, but it's not matter. Okay. The second one, identify an intensive and an extensive property. This is going to ask you for an example of an intensive property. And we have lots of properties of matter. Can you tell me some of them? Just any physical property of matter?
Solid, liquid.
Okay, so the state of matter is one. The color,
Weight.
density,
Volume.
weight, volume, shape,
Smell.
odor, and a whole bunch of other things. Melting point, boiling point, stuff like that. Okay. Now, this is a great list. I'm glad you came up with those examples. Some of these are intensive properties and some of them are extensive properties. The intensive properties do not depend on the size of your sample. So it doesn't matter how much you have or what shape it's in. Is the state of matter, solid, liquid, gas, intensive or extensive? What was it?
Intensive.
Intensive, said Abe yawning. That's intensive. This would be under standard conditions. So water's a liquid under standard conditions. It just is, no matter how much you have. How about the color? Intensive. Density. Intensive. Weight. Extensive. If you have a big sample, it's going to be heavier. If you have a small sample, it's going to be lighter. So weight is extensive. It's a physical property, but it doesn't give us as much information about the substances, these first few that we mentioned. How about volume? Extensive. Shape? Extensive. Odor? Intensive. Melting and boiling point? Intensive. Awesome. You guys are going to do great. Density is intensive. 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 So the ones that are extensive would be weight, volume, shape. There are other things. Temperature would be extensive because you could heat something up or cool something down.
What about
Extensive.
like odor? Like if you have, sure that wouldn't be like extensive because if you have like one flower in a room, then it might smell like something. But if you have like a room full of flowers.
But a room full of roses is going to have a characteristic scent, and a room full of daisies is going to have a characteristic scent. So the odor of the substance itself. And it's a little more complicated with something like a flower because
Right there.
you don't want to be on camera.
Oh, you could see the little red guy right
Yeah.
there? And there was a tissue box.
Chicken. Okay.
So
Okay, everybody up and at 'em. Focusing. Watch me. Watch me. Watch me.
Wait, I don't understand how temperature would be extensive because it doesn't matter if something's big or something's small. It's the same temperature.
Right, but we could warm it up or cool it down. Right, we could put it on a pan of water on a stove and make it hotter.
Is that going to be
It's still
outside?
water, but it's a different temperature.
Okay.
So it's intensive.
Extensive. Okay, the next set. we're looking at the difference between physical and chemical properties using examples. So, all of the things we've mentioned here, those are physical properties. Those are all physical properties. And most of the properties we recognize are. A chemical property talks about how it reacts. Chemical properties have something to do with reactions. So chemical properties, reactions. Okay, so if I say that a chunk of iron is like the iron filings we had in lab. It's kind of a grayish brown color. It fizzes when it's in hydrochloric acid. It smells like a faint metallic-y odor, and it will melt at whatever, some 1,000 degrees Celsius. Okay? Which of those things that I mentioned was a chemical property of iron? The fizzing in hydrochloric acid is actually reacting with the hydrochloric acid, forming iron chloride, and the fizz is hydrogen gas. So you have to look for it changing its atomic structure somehow, changing its chemical arrangement somehow. You should know the list of words that triggers to you that, okay, this is chemical. Fermenting, forming, producing, bubbling, something about a gas or explosion or light given off, that kind of stuff. Alrighty, number 4, give examples of physical properties. Very similar. They're going to give you a list of choices and ask you which ones are physical and which ones are chemical. So these questions are kind of repetitive here. Okay? I may be giving you slightly different examples, but we've mentioned a nice list of things here that are good examples of physical properties. Okay? As opposed to chemical. It's got to be doing something different, changing into something different if it's going to be a chemical property. Number 5, define or describe a vapor. Vapors are what state of matter? Gas. Now, why don't we just say gas instead of vapor? Why do we need the word vapor? I don't know if we
vapor has like some kind of moisture to it.
It might. We think of it like water vapor, clouds or water vapor. Vapor is usually used to describe the gaseous form of a substance that's usually a liquid or a solid. So when we use gas, we're saying, okay, this is a substance that's a gas all the time. A vapor is the gaseous form of something that's usually a liquid or even a solid. So dry ice, carbon dioxide will turn right into carbon dioxide gas or vapor. Water, if we boil it, will turn into steam or water vapor. And that actually addresses number 6 as well. Describe a vapor and how it forms. What is it? Forms, yeah. So, vapor is different than just a gas because a substance as a vapor is usually a liquid or a solid.
Can you describe vapor one more time?
Yeah.
I just said it. A vapor is the gaseous form of something that's usually a liquid or a solid.
So for some liquid or solid.
Right. We can boil rubbing alcohol and turn it into a vapor. It's usually a liquid. But when we boil it and turn it into the gaseous form, then we call it a vapor. It's kind of a minor vocabulary distinction. Alrighty, number 7. Identify what state of matter takes both the shape and volume of its container. Now, this is a great example of how the test hints can really match the test question.